efficiency. I have seen the evidence that if our industry remains accountable to these values and new ethical standards, the foundations of intimacy work have the potential to dramatically improve the performing arts far beyond scenes of intimacy. It takes everyone to build a culture of consent. So let's get started. Jessica Renee Steinrock, Ph.D., CEO, Intimacy Directors and Coordinators, Incorporated. Introduction. Intentional Beginnings. When considering how best to introduce the concepts and practices within this book, about which we are so passionate, we paused. Staging intimacy is a relatively new specialization within theater as an industry, and those aware of these emerging practices were often introduced to them in contrasting ways. Some were introduced to this work while seeking ways to improve and empower their own practices. In this search, they learned from or collaborated with other compassionate, enthusiastic artists who have invited significant shifts industry-wide by helping actors work more consensually, dynamically, and safely. Others have discovered the specialization of staged intimacy as a part of more sweeping administrative changes. Many companies, universities, and more are incorporating various modern practices around agency, inclusion, and consent that better their workspaces. However, some listeners have encountered the need for professional staged intimacy practices due to experiencing and witnessing problematic practices. There have been abusive behaviors, unqualified personnel, a lack of support for the vulnerable, or other inappropriate actions that have sparked demand for change throughout the industry and created the need to reevaluate the way teams engage with staged intimacy and our theatrical process in general. Given these differing initiations to the work, we asked ourselves how to begin. Do we start with the positive connotations and roots of intimacy direction in personal agency, better storytelling, and consent? Do we begin with the more negative roots in problematic industry-wide practices, or do we start somewhere in between? So, we took a breath and realized that to introduce this new working method, we should practice the mindfulness and authenticity encouraged within it. We then asked ourselves, what is it about this contemporary approach that speaks to us as individuals, professionals, and educators? Why do we believe so deeply in these processes and this content? What actions led us to author this book, teach this work, and support our artistic team members in creative endeavors? And finally, we asked ourselves how our lens as writers impacts the information we share. By beginning with these questions and sharing what motivates us as artists, we hope that each listener and creative team member, like you, will bring this work to your practice in your way. Your lived experiences, self-discoveries, desires, and goals that lead to artistic creation may support your process and that of those who create and collaborate alongside you as you work with staged intimacy. Tina on her journey to staged intimacy through stage management. The reason this work is important to me stems from my time in school. I was in college in the late 80s at a Midwest small state school. The culture was incredibly different back then, especially in our theater department. I worked in the scene shop and was one of 2 female students hired. It was mostly me and a bunch of guys who were the tech kids at the time. I loved working behind the scenes, and I was able to do a lot. I designed, built, painted, stage managed, welded, you name it, and I did it. But I was naive. I didn't know how to respond when our department chair bragged about choosing work based on the desire to have female cast members rehearse in corsets. My naivete blinded me to our working culture and to the ways we spoke to each other. I was oblivious to the ways we treated each other, and things didn't improve when, a few years later, when working professionally, I found myself dumbfounded when a director bragged about having every male